I believed that my identity was the guy who knew everybody, the guy who was a part of everything, the guy who was on every board and every committee, the guy who had relationships everywhere. If you needed something, I could call somebody and I could help you make that happen, right? That was my identity, and that was my value. And both of those statements are wrong.
Right.
Both of those statements are false.
Welcome back to Authentic on Air with Bruce Alexander. I am still your host, Bruce Alexander. Effortless engagement, a skill that I covet. The ability to work a room from the second you walk in. Today's guest, Peter Evans, has it. And today I want to destruct the identity of a natural networker. But first, today's reflection. I am unapologetically myself. Until I walk into a room full of strangers who have the potential to provide the connection. I am, for a time, completely unfamiliar with who I am. Any joie de vivre that I command in regular conversation completely evaporates along with my confidence. What is the recurring situation in your life that separates you from your sense of self, no matter your commitment to authenticity? How do you handle it? Do you get the results you desire? Why or why not? I'll give you this tip free of charge. Do it anyway. As disparate as I feel in that moment, I just start walking. Then I aim towards a person. Then I speak to the first person on the way who seems unoccupied. Sometimes, even before I speak the hello I was choking on, I step back into myself and have a natural conversation. Other times it may take an introduction or two, but at some point, I always show up for myself, and if you just start the thing, you will too. Peter Evans altered the trajectory of my life with one phrase. He may not even remember saying it. I believe in you. I had not heard that in a long time. I was especially vulnerable as I explored new responsibility for the fire department as a fundraiser and event coordinator. I was on shaky ground. I had achieved solid objective success, but remained an outsider. I didn't know if I would ever be good enough for my peers and superiors. I needed someone to believe in me. Peter then invested time in me to further prove that he saw something in me that I did not see in myself. The version of me that sits here today was developed largely by the support of people like Peter. People who weren't waiting for me to become someone else, someone I couldn't be. He believed that all I was missing was the opportunity to be a success. I needed that, and I took it, and it would fuel me as I faced major adversity. The power of words is unfathomable. My guest today uses them efficiently and uses them to put good out into this not-so-great world. Welcome to the show, Peter Evans.
Man, what an intro. I don't know that I was totally expecting that, and you're right. I don't remember that moment or saying those words, but hearing you say that and the impact that had on you gave me some goosebumps, some chills to start. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Very, very appreciative. It reminds me of just one of my favorite TED Talks. I think it's called Lollipop Moments, and it's how many people in your life have given you some words like that just meant something to you so big that they don't even remember happened. And the whole thing is about telling those people those things. So thank you, man. That's really special.
No, thank you. Like it made a huge difference in who I am today. So it's a powerful moment in my story. Is that commonplace for you?
Man, you say that, and just like, I don't remember that moment. I mean, I remember a ton of the conversations we had, and I remember kind of how we came together and some of the stuff we started working on in the beginning, right? But I can't remember that specific moment. So is it commonplace? I don't know. Not remembering is definitely commonplace. But I don't know, man. I feel like I'm a natural encourager, and that's a sincere thing I do just because I'm excited when people are doing things they're excited about.
Yeah.
I hope it's commonplace, but I can't sit here and rattle off another 2 or 3 times when I really did that and pump someone up like that. So yeah. I don't know, man. I hope so.
I mean, yeah, I hope so too, because you have a really uncanny ability to speak power into somebody. And like I said, you're an effortless user of words that are powerful. So I appreciate
that, man. Thank you.
To refresh your memory a little bit, we went to the barbecue place in Homeland on the east side. Yeah. Sat down, we had a conversation talking about the South OKC board of Chamber of Commerce, and sitting on the board, and that to me was something it was never even on my radar.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't end up working out, but to me, the fact that you had the confidence in me to even put my name up for that was a big deal. And I asked, why did you even think about it? And you said, because I believe in you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm sure that as you go down this road of identifying authenticity and some of the people you will meet through this podcast and on this journey, and some of the people you've already met through this podcast, you'll probably agree that you cross paths with people sometimes, and you just know, like, this is a sincere person trying to do their best, trying to put good out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was pretty evident from the start. And I enjoy being around those people. I don't know if anything will ever come from it. I don't know if we'll ever, do something together, make something together, but I'm going to be in your corner. I'm going to be there to help out when you need me.
And having had that much more over the past couple of years has made a huge difference. I mean, it really has, going from having friends who just, want to party and drink to having, having colleagues and people in your network who are really rooting for you. It makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely, man.
You can actually envision yourself being successful.
Yeah.
It helps whenever somebody else sees it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's rewind a little bit. Okay. Tell our listeners who aren't familiar with Peter Evans, in your own words, who you are, what you spend your days doing, and why you think I invited you to be a guest on the show.
Man, that description, that intro has changed a lot, especially over the last couple of years. For a long time, I was a guy in South Oklahoma City who was extremely involved. I was everywhere because that was my job. Took a job at a local media company, and they said, go out and get involved in the community. And that's what I did, and got involved and met people, joined boards, joined committees. And for a long time, I thought that was my identity. And so when I got the question of who are you, what do you do, it was always that, right? That led me to the Police Athletic League, where I was the executive director for almost 8 years. And again, that was very much my identity. But I didn't really know any better. I was young. I took that job at 27, I think. Mm-hmm. Again, just started the networking, and it became so easy to make that my identity, right? And then when I left PAL in 2020, I struggled with that. That was a big struggle because it was my identity. I didn't know who I was outside of that person who was involved in every board and every committee and knew everyone when you walked in a room. And so I struggled with that for a long time. So who am I now? My faith is an important part of my life. I try to be a man of God first and foremost. I'm an uncle, and that's a huge part of my life. Shout out to my little nephew who just turned 2 yesterday. That's super exciting. I'm just someone trying to figure out how to be more of my authentic self, coincidentally.
Right. I'm going to skip ahead a few questions because you talked about your nephew. So board of directors for the South OKC Chamber.
Yeah.
And Mount St. Mary High School Board of Directors.
Yeah.
The OKC Good Board of Directors. The Capitol Hill Main Street Board of Directors, Exchange Rotary Board of Directors, and on and on and on. What is about service that gets you going so much, but also is the most important title you have, Uncle?
What is it about service that gets me going. The one thing I've been certain of for a long time is that I feel called to serve. Serve others, help people, encourage people. And so when I am introduced to people who are trying to do something good, for really trying their best to accomplish something, I want to be a part of it. I want to be your cheerleader. I want to help. If I can do something to help you in that journey, if I can take out an obstacle, whatever, I will do it. I'm just so excited when people are doing things that they're passionate about. So you listed off all of those boards, and the commonplace there is that those boards were all doing something really cool, with some really great people involved. I've met some of my best friends through those engagements. And I just wanted to be a part of it. I just wanted to help. So that's where I got to. And again, back to the identity, I thought that's who I had to be for a long time. When I got to step away from that, COVID was kind of a hard reset, a forced reset, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of that stopped. And the question of how much of this stuff was actually important to me, and which pieces of it do I miss now that I can't do it, right? What do I want to get back to? What do I want to do? Figuring that out has been a fun journey, but you asked about the uncle title. Absolutely, man. Got two little nephews there, 5 and 2, and they're perfect. And when I'm having a bad day, when I'm in a tough mental spot, I just go be around them, hang out with them, and nothing else matters. And it's such a great way to refocus on what's important, and just what makes me happy.
In that same vein, do you plan on having your own family at some point?
Man, I'm 38. That hasn't happened for me yet. I've lived most of my life assuming that would have happened by now. It hasn't, for whatever reason. And so it's not something that I'm going to say no to. I mean, yes, I would love to be a dad. I would love to have my own kids. But I'm opening my mind to the idea of life maybe going a different direction. So we'll see what comes there.
So let's talk about your early journey a little bit more. You spent 3 years at TCU, and then why Texas?
I grew up in a very small bubble here in Oklahoma City. And also, you got to keep in mind, it was in high school. It was class of 2003. So I grew up in a different Oklahoma City than the Oklahoma City we live in now, right? This was pre-Thunder. This was before all of our districts, before the food scene. There was not a lot in Oklahoma City, and I don't think anyone would tell you otherwise at that point in time. Grew up in a small bubble, and I felt like I grew up around a lot of people who were pretty content in that bubble, and I wanted to do something different. And so I knew I wanted to get out of that bubble. So I started looking for ways to just go out of state for school. Around this same time, 9/11 happened. Big, impactful moment in our history, impactful moment in my life. And we were showing up to school that morning, to my physics class with John Kilty. He was my teacher at the time. He'd recently retired from the Navy. And all he talked about was serving his country and wanting to re-enlist and go back and serve, and go back and defend our country. And that was the first time in my life, sophomore, junior in high school, whatever that was, that I was like, oh man, that's what I want to do. I want to serve. I want to go serve. And so I started down the path of trying to figure out how to make military a career. Wound up with ROTC scholarship, had the opportunity to apply it to TCU. Went down there, really, really, really enjoyed college. My grades, my attendance reflected that. So
Same.
that's why I started at TCU, and that's why I did not finish at TCU. Had some scholarship dollars that I did not have the ability to keep. And, grew up in a not a wealthy family in South Oklahoma City. I won't say that we were poor, but we always had enough, but there wasn't a lot extra.
Right.
And so the ability, the option to continue paying for TCU wasn't an option for me and my family. So I had the opportunity to go down the road to UTA, University of Texas, Arlington, about 20 minutes down the road, and stay in the same ROTC program and stay around my friends and stay in the same network of people there. So stayed there and finished out that way. Unfortunately, the Air Force thing didn't work out for me. And I had all of my eggs in that basket. I had no backup plan. 22, 10 for tall and bulletproof. This is going to work out. It's going to be fine. It didn't work out. That was my first major heartbreak in life. Didn't work out. But fortunately, I had some people in my life, namely a guy named Tony Tyler, who believed in me, who was talking to him when it was all going down, when it was becoming clear that the Air Force wasn't going to be an option for me. And he said, come back to Oklahoma City, come work for me. He said, I want you to be a part of our company.
And when you say Tony Tyler, that's of Tyler Media.
Yes.
So that's
Tony Tyler.
I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of Tyler Media. That's
yeah. When we first started building our relationship, I didn't know who Tony Tyler, who Tyler Media was, but that was just one of the happy accidents in my life. So yeah, Tony said, come back and work for me. I said, Tony, what's the job? What do you want me to do? He said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Just come back. And so I showed up, moved back to Oklahoma City and showed up to my first day at work at Tyler Media, not knowing what the job was, not knowing what I was getting paid, not knowing anything. Right. And I think Tony, to his credit, probably didn't know it either. And we just figured it out. So,
if you don't mind me asking, there's a lot of hinting around what happened with the Air Force.
So I in ROTC, you kind of get your placement, your job assignment, your junior year. And I got a ABM slot, air battle manager spot, which is like the backseat of the AWACS, right? Air traffic control type stuff. That sent you down a path of all the extra physicals and background checks and all that sort of stuff. Air Force found out that the Air Force and myself, and we all found out at the same time, I have a hearing problem in my right ear.
Oh, really?
That is completely a non-issue. But I couldn't pass the Air Force hearing test. And I took that test countless times. I took it through them countless times. I took it through my own doctors a number of times, took some steroids to try and work on whatever was happening in my ear, and never could pass it. So there's a certain level, a certain tone that my right ear does not hear at all. My left ear hears it fine, so I will never notice. It's truly a non-issue. But I can't pass the test. And I failed the test so bad that we went through an 18-month appeals process. And at the end of that, Air Force said, nope, can't do it.
Wow.
and got cut. So it's one of those things that at the time it was, the most unfair thing in the world. How could this happen to me? All that sort of stuff. But looking back, there were a number of signs, I think, I was probably supposed to come back to Oklahoma City. One of the other signs, had I gotten that job, had the physical worked out, had I gone down the air battle manager path, you spend roughly 80% of your career at Tinker Air Force Base.
So you were coming back.
Yeah. I joined the military to get stationed at Tinker Air Force Base. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to. So yeah.
If my understanding is correct, air traffic controller is kind of a path to being on some pretty badass units, right?
Yeah, that's the thought. There's plenty of activity happening in the sky, so I guess that's not always guaranteed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're probably in more of the thick of things. Mm-hmm. But those AWACS are doing that from so far up in the sky that I don't know that there's much of any sort of rush to it. But you're definitely an impactful part of what's happening out there for sure. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's definitely not what I was thinking. The way that you hinted around it, I was like, "What did you do? Like, why did the Air Force find out about you that they're like, we can't actually do this with you after all this time and money that's been invested in you?" But no, that's really unfortunate.
They, you kind of set your graduation year. At least this is how it was when I was there. I don't know if things have changed over the last 20 years or so. That's weird to say, right? But the military, the ROTC programs, academies will commit too many kids, and then they'll have to spend some years cutting kids. Mm. And then they'll cut too many kids, and they'll have to spend some years commissioning kids. And so they can tell you ahead of time, the year you're set to graduate is probably going to be a commission year, probably going to be a cut year. And those are just things you know. And when you're in a cut year, they just say, don't give them a reason to cut you. Right. You'll probably get cut. Mm. And there was a reason, and I got cut. And that's what it was, man. Small one. So, but what a lot of people might not realize about the ROTC program is that's essentially a minor, and you are being trained to be an officer in the military, which means that at the ripe old age of 23, 24, first day on the job, you're going to outrank 70% of the people in the military. So you're going to outrank the chiefs and the master chiefs who've been doing that job for 15, 20, 25 years, yeah. Right? And who carry more weight than you and who just are better at their job than you'll probably ever be. And yet they have to call you sir and they have to salute you, right? So you go through a lot of leadership training and how to handle that responsibility and how to work with those groups. Know that the authority that you come in with, there's given authority that's kind of given to you with your rank, and then there's influential authority that you earn. And so there were, just looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, there's so many things I learned there that applied to so many other aspects of my life, especially later on when I came in as a young civilian working with the police department in a group I carried no authority over. Right. So a lot of things that worked out in a very interesting way.
So in the fire department, we learned about command presence, mm-hmm. and having heard a little bit more of your training, yeah. That makes sense now, yeah. Because you have that effortless ability to kind of like exist with confidence in a room. That's the command presence. And yeah. That's a good little look into how that exists for you. And, maybe you don't feel it, but that's the way it comes across to people who are in the space with you. So that's the first tip. That's how you get there. Military training.
Well, I'll tell you, you say it's effortless. It's definitely not effortless. The other thing that surprises people who only know me in those settings is that I'm very much an introvert. I've always said that I'm an introvert who gets paid to be an extrovert, right? I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies. And so, especially let's look at the rooms you've seen me in, the places you've seen me work the room, right? Like you say, those are relationships that have been cultivated over years, right? So it's taken me a long time to feel comfortable in that space. But we walked into a new room of people today, I'd probably be the guy on the wall, grabbing a drink or some food. And if I find someone to talk to, great. If I have an opportunity to leave 20, 30 minutes in, also great.
So, I mean, and that's one of the bigger tricks I use is like know somebody there.
Yep.
If you can just know any one person there, even if you're not like the best of friends, just have somebody you can walk in and talk to pretty quickly. It's like establishing dominance. Like, hey, this is my party, even though it's not, if you have a touchstone to feel comfortable in case things go sideways and you feel totally out of place. Like this person knows me, I can talk to them.
Well, and take that a step further. Once you do know someone, help someone who doesn't know someone, right? And all the way back to Tony, my time with Tony Tyler, spent my first year on the job shadowing him. If he was in a board meeting, if he was in a business meeting, if he was in a networking meeting, wherever Tony was, I was with him. And that's all my job was for the first year. Just follow Tony around, do whatever Tony needs. And you talk about working a room. Tony's he's kind of the master of that.
Really?
But he's a very sincere guy. He's a very relational guy. Same sort of thing. He's walking in a room that with relationships that he's probably cultivated over years and years and years of service and being his real authentic self, right? But Tony's great at remembering who you are, or remembering something about you, right? So you automatically feel like, hey, I got some value in this guy, right? Like he sees something in me. There's a relationship there. I can trust this guy. And he's great about saying, hey, Bruce, have you met this person? This person is into this stuff. You guys might both like this topic.
Right.
Talk about this thing. You're doing this. He's doing this. You guys should know each other. So great about helping people connect that way. And that's what he did with me for the first year. Hey, guys, this is Peter. He really likes doing this, or he's really good at this. Or, hey, Peter, this is so-and-so. Here's what they're into. You might really like that because you do this. And just, I jokingly say he Mr. Miyagi me a little bit, right? Just a year of him doing that with me and taking me into every room. And then at about the year mark, he told most of those groups that he was stepping away from that position of being community facing, and that I was their guy.
Did you know that before?
I did not. I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tony, the South Chamber board just said I'm on their board. I've never been on a board. What do I do? I don't belong in that room. What's going on? And he just gives me his little Tony smile and he said, you'll figure it out. And I, walk into a board meeting with 30 people that I spent the last year getting to know and didn't even realize it, didn't know it.
Wow.
And so, Tony, there's a big aspect of my life. I am who I am. I treat people the way I treat people, from a lot of things I learned from Tony.
So, I mean, it sounds like he definitely invested a lot of time, money in you. Yep. How long did you stay with Tyler Media?
So, my relationship with Tony goes back long before that. So I went to Mount St. Mary High School. He went to Mount St. Mary High School, a few years behind me. We're I was on the basketball team. He was on the basketball team.
I'm sorry, behind you? This guy is younger than us?
No, sorry.
Oh.
Older than
Okay, I was what?
Second, no, sorry. Older than us. He was class of 88.
Okay.
But I played basketball, and it was pretty routine when I was there playing basketball that older alumni would come back and practice with us a few times a month and just beat up on us, right? Just grown men coming and play high school kids beating up on you. And Tony was one of those guys. And Tony was, I got to play with the varsity as a freshman. Play is a very loose term. I was on the team. I don't know if I did a lot of playing. But Tony kind of, he gave me a lot of ribbing in the locker room, but also, I mean, stood up for me and just, he took notice of me pretty early on. And at the same time, I was going through confirmation. You have to have a sponsor for confirmation. And in fine procrastinator fashion, I just put it off to the very last minute. And we were walking out of basketball practice one day, and I just said, "Hey, you're an adult that I know. Would you be my confirmation sponsor?" And little did I know that was just going to start my path down a lifelong journey with Tony Tyler. So that was probably 99. I went to work for him in 2009, and I stayed there until 2013 when I left for PAL. Mm-hmm. And the other cool part about it, back to Tony just being incredible. At that time, I had been on the PAL board for about a year. Really fell in love with the Police Athletic League. And they were operating without an executive director. They'd never had one before. It was always just a police-led program. And the board had a fundraiser that was starting to do pretty well, raising a lot of money. And so they said the next step is for us to hire a director. Let's go that route. And that was probably January of 2012. And I started thinking about it and said, I think that's something I want to do. I want to give that a shot. So I started talking to a couple of people about it. And they got excited about it, and they were like, yeah, let's make this happen. Let's pull the trigger. We got the money. We know what we want to do. We know our guy. Let's make this happen. So again, January 2012. So I go have the emotional conversation with my mentor. Hey, Tony, I know that you've been building me up to go down this path for Tyler Media, but I think I got to go try something else. And the reality is Tony and I sat in his office and probably cried together for about an hour as I was talking about leaving there. Right.
Yeah.
January 2012 and said, they're wanting to move pretty fast. This is going to happen any day now. So let's get our stuff ready. Right. Fast forward to April, still hasn't happened. Fast forward to June. At this point in time, we've pieced all my Tyler Media obligations out to coworkers or new hires, knowing that I'm going to leave. June of 2012, still hasn't happened. Pal hasn't made the decision yet. Hasn't even started the process of looking for someone yet. Still saying, yeah, any day now. And Tony essentially let me keep. So we had a plan where now that I'd passed my stuff off to everyone else, I'd spend some time making sure that they knew how to do the things we passed to them. After we got that done, we're probably in July, August, and I literally have no reason to keep my job at Tyler Media. There's nothing for me to do there. Pal still hasn't come around yet. And Tony tells me, show up here every day, spend your first couple hours making sure nobody needs anything around the office, and spend your afternoons out looking for other jobs. Interview, talk to network, do whatever you got to do. Go find the thing you want to do. This pal thing's not going to work out.
Wow.
And so he paid me for 6 months to go interview with other companies, other organizations. Fast forward, finally the pal thing worked out in January of 13. January.
Wow.
But he kept me on staff at my full salary for another 6 months when he did not have to do that.
Man.
So not only
relationships are everything.
Not only would I not be who I am without Tony, I would have. I mean, pal thing would have never happened. I couldn't have gone 6 months without a job. Wait for that thing to come around. You know.
So who were you in communication with that was giving you the wrong information? And I'm going to guess, having been in similar situations,
right?
There was more than one train moving at the same time.
Man, it was my. Even though I went through military type training, and I was never actually in that day-to-day work life, right? So this was my first time venturing into that city government pace of movement.
Oh, bureaucracy.
And when they say any day now, and they look back and say, we got that position hired in a year. That's probably lightning speed to them, right? Mm-hmm. Coming out of the for-profit world where any day now means
next week.
Yeah, mm-hmm. We're losing money, we're losing business until this thing happens. Make it happen. That's not what any day now means to the police department, right?
Yep.
And they have their ways of working, they have their systems they work through, and that's what it took that long to get all their ducks in a row to be ready to make a hire.
In defense of city government, there is a reason that everything moves so slow.
Absolutely.
Because there are so many moving parts and so many other things that are affected by every decision that's made. 100%. And taxpayer dollars are being spent with everything. So they have to be accountable.
Yeah.
But working within that system is awful if you're a person who likes to see things get done, at a pretty quick clip. Yeah. That's a large part of the reason why I continue to get in trouble is because I wanted to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And, my ADHD says this is the thing we're working on. Work until it's finished.
Right.
That's not the way that the government works. You work on it until you get to a point where you can present it to someone who can make decisions. Mm-hmm. And then you wait and wait and wait. And I hated that. The system I was in, we had to work on something until we could present it to someone who could make decisions, but that person had to present it to someone who could make a decision. That person. Same. Up the chain, right? And and again, not meant to be a knock on anything. It was just different than what I was used to. And so had I understood that better at the time, I would have described the situation better. But I took their any day now as a me and you any day now. Right. It was not. So, we've talked in length about the learning curve that existed for both of us coming from military or paramilitary backgrounds going into it and being in these administrative positions is definitely very difficult to learn.
Sure.
And it's easy to struggle. I probably shouldn't have struggled as much as I did because I kept making the same mistake because not out of impatience, but out of ambition.
Yeah.
Wanting to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's, it can be a dangerous thing.
Mine was impatience and immaturity, man.
Immaturity might have been part of it too.
Looking back again, I took that job at 27. I probably did not have the relevant experience to get that job. Mm-hmm. But there were some people that believed in me, some people who were in my corner kind of cheering me on. The other really, really cool thing that happened at that time, when I finally got the job, my first time to sit down and meet then Chief Bill City, he said, do you know how many emails I've got from people in the community telling me that we need to speed this up and hire you. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know what you mean. And he rattled off people from all over Oklahoma City who were reaching out to him because they had a relationship, because they knew someone. They knew him from something, saying, hey, you guys have an opportunity to hire this kid for this thing. Do it.
Wow.
And those weren't things I asked for. Those weren't things I expected. And again, just knowing that I had that kind of support behind me that I had no idea about, even still in this moment, chokes me up a little bit.
Wow. So that kind of leads me down another path. You've had a lot of really great support all through your career. As you worked into this new position, I don't know if this is still true, but you kind of seem like you weren't really living up to the hype. Is that still true?
Elaborate on your question for me.
You would kind of seem like there was some uncertainty about you really fulfilling your potential.
Oh, you mean I had expressed that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, man. It goes back to that identity thing, right? Like I believed that my identity was the guy who knew everybody, the guy who was a part of everything, the guy who was on every board and every committee, the guy who had relationships everywhere. If you needed something, I could call somebody and I could help you make that happen, right? That was my identity, and that was my value. And both of those statements are wrong.
Right.
Both of those statements are false, right? I didn't know that at the time. Back to that kind of immaturity, perceived invincibility. But that, when I got to a place in my life when it was too much, it was too much to carry, there was too much anxiety, there were too many plates spinning, and I couldn't do it because I'd set up an unsustainable trajectory, right? When I got to the place where I couldn't do it anymore, I suffered. I went to a dark place, man, because all of a sudden my identity and my value are things I'm not good at. Because look at this thing that dropped over here. Or look at that thing that didn't get done over there. Look at that thing that I told someone I would help with that I couldn't help with, or I wasn't good enough to help with. All of a sudden, I'm not good enough. And that struggle, I struggled there. I spent, I loved PAL, right? Still do. But I probably spent my last 2.5, 3 years there on a personal mission just to prove that I was good enough to do it. There was not enjoyment in that, right? That's not me being my authentic self. That's not me being in a healthy place. It's me doing everything I can to hold on to this facade of I can do it all. Again, I didn't know any better. I thought that leadership meant I got to do everything. I'm the end all be all. The buck stops with me. I make every decision. This thing passes or fails because of me. And then I take those successes, ideally only successes, and take them back to my support system and my board of directors and my team and say, look at this. Look at what we did. Look at what we got through, right? Looking back, I missed out on such an incredible resource because I had such incredible community champions on my board of directors. And I rarely asked them for anything. I had guys that could spend any amount of money on anything they wanted in the world on my board. I had people with relationships everywhere in the city who could have called in any sort of favor, any time of day, right? I had just genuine people on my board, and I never asked them for anything because I thought I had to do it all myself. And again, that's not what leadership is, and it's not. It was just unsustainable and unhealthy. And so again, the last couple of years, I spent my time just trying to prove to myself, to everyone else, that I was good enough to do it. Beat me down a lot. That was a rough time period.
So in that period, if I understand this correctly,
Yeah,
the responsibility in your mind was all on you. The failures were all on you, but the success belonged to everybody?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, that's...
Because, even though I was a part of it and I was the leader in many cases, I was never comfortable with the, hey, look at me, right? Like, it was a team win, a team effort. But if something failed, if something broke, it was, I'm gonna carry this, I'm gonna take this heat for everybody else. Yeah.
That sounds pretty hard.
Again, back to me just believing that's where my value came in. Here's everything I can do to take a burden off of your shoulders without replacing it with another burden.
So what did that dark place look like?
Man, a lot of isolation. There's anxiety, there's depression, there's really, really, really negative thoughts that just go to bad places. Yeah. And again, being the guy who knows everybody and is involved in everything, I can't show up to your board meeting and with that kind of attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not only was I carrying that, I also didn't feel like I had any place to show it. Again, even though I had guys like Tony Tyler still in my corner who would have carried that burden with me all day and has since. I couldn't let anybody know. I couldn't tell anyone. And so, man, talk about whatever the exact extreme opposite of authentic is, right? Like, I was showing up every day being a completely different person, being absolutely not myself. I needed help and I couldn't tell anybody about it.
And that's, I've talked about this in depth, that authenticity is not just about showing the best side of you to everybody.
Uh-huh.
It's about when you're struggling. Of course, it's not for everybody to know your struggles, but those people who care about you and have invested in you, it's about showing, hey, I'm struggling, and giving, as Derek and I talked about, giving your friends an opportunity to friend. Letting them have a chance to be there for you like you've been there for them. Man,
giving your friends an opportunity to friend. It was probably 2018, 19, 20, somewhere in there, when I finally gave my friends an opportunity to friend.
Wow.
And that was heavy too, man, because I felt like I was coming to you saying, hey, the person you've known over the last 10, 20 years is not the actual guy who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Here's who I really am. And I had this scenario built up in my head where all these people were going to be like, that's too weird. That's too much, too heavy for me. Good luck to you. Right. And just leave.
Yeah.
And man, my friends showed up and continue to show up today in such a big way when all that happened. There's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it. I love quotes. I shouldn't butcher this one, but it's something like, people will notice you for your abilities, but people will love you for your vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. Right? So
it's pretty close as far as I remember.
Yeah. And that's real, man. So
how long do you think in all you were in that place where you were really covering up that, where not the place where you were misassigning your value, but the place where you felt like you were failing and you were hiding it from everybody. How long do you feel like you were in that place?
2017 to 2020. I can almost give you the dates.
3 years. That's a long time. And so when you finally revealed yourself to your friends, did that feel like a NASCAR freaking just hitting the wall? Did it just...
Man, it was... So a couple of things. The first person I told was my girlfriend at the time. Again, this is probably like 2017. And she said something insanely profound to me that most everyone else will probably just say, like, yeah, duh. You dummy, come on. I was having this is kind of when the whole thing was starting, and I kind of let her in on some of these thoughts and feelings I was having. And she just said, you know, you don't have to live like that, right? I was like, what? What do you mean? Of course I do. These were the cards I was dealt, and this is the hand I got to play, right? This is life. That simple statement led me down a path of counseling, towards counseling, which at the time I was embarrassed to tell people about. I was embarrassed to tell people I was in counseling, seeing a counselor. So if I had a counseling session on my calendar, I was calling it something different, straight up just lying about where I was going. Wow. I didn't want anyone to know I was going to counseling, because that idea of saying, like, hey, I need help just wasn't on my radar, right? Mm-hmm. Here I am now, 6 years later, still seeing the same counselor, and it's blasted everywhere. If I have counseling, leave me alone. I'm in counseling right now. Like, right. I don't got time for you. If someone's not dead, do not call me. I'm in counseling. Absolutely. I've become such an advocate for it, man. Mental health counseling is something that, thankfully I think we've come out of most of the stigma around that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. People are talking about this now, but we still got to talk about it a lot more. Yeah, especially, I was raised I'm half Hispanic. I was raised by the Hispanic side of my family. I think you see a lot in minorities of here's how you're supposed to act. Here's how you're supposed to let emotion out. And I'm sure everyone, minority or not, says, yeah, I was raised with some of that too, or I see some of that too. So I'm sure it's not unique to me and my situation. But man, we got to talk about it a lot more. Yeah. Mental health, saying, hey, I'm not okay, I need help, is a big deal. And so I started going to a counselor in 2017, and it took 3 years of counseling before I could tell my first friend, Tony Tyler, coincidentally, took him to lunch at Charleston's and 240 in Penn and cried through the entire thing saying, I'm not okay, I need help. And everyone, I said this to another great friend of mine, Liz Acklin, who's been a friend of mine for 10 years now. I told her to another buddy, one of my TCU buddies, David, who has been one of my best friends for 20 years. I'm terrified to tell these people of here's who I really am, I need help. Every one of them not only showed up and friended in a big way, but they also said, like, yeah, man, me too. Like, I get that way sometimes too, and I'm also afraid to talk about it. So thank you for opening this door so we can talk about it. Another buddy, Drew, a TCU guy who happens to live here, same sort of thing. And just thank you that we can talk about these things, right? Yeah. And so having all of these people say, yeah, man, me too, that was such an incredible weight off, because, that anxiety, that depression, one of the factors there that just multiplies that feeling, and for me at least, was the isolation. Mm-hmm. Feeling that what I'm carrying, what I'm going through is so unique to me, you wouldn't understand it.
Right.
And everyone else is like, oh yeah, I completely understand it. Here's my scenario. Here's my situation. That sounds just like that. I need help too.
So for 3 years of counseling, was one of the main goals the entire time to be able to be honest with your friends?
No, man. Nope. the first goal and the tougher one was being honest with myself.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Again,
hey, you should be your friend. I don't know if you know.
No, and that's, man, there was a long time when I wasn't my friend, man.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a place where I had to take a lot of responsibility really early. I had to start protecting people really early. Always had to look out for other people, and never learned how to say, I need a little bit of help. I don't feel good today. I don't feel right. I can't do this today. Can you help me? Just wasn't there, right? And that's, again, not a knock on anyone. It's just an aspect of how I was raised, right? Taking that into life and back to, that's where my value comes from. Value comes in a place where I'm going to be there when I say I'm going to be there, and I'm going to help you do what you're trying to do, right? And I'm not going to ask you for anything in return. So yeah, my very first battle in counseling was unlearning that, right? And accepting and believing that I'm good enough the way I am, man. Right? Like we've all got good days and we've got bad days, and we've got things we do well and things we don't do well. And either way, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And even today, man, I mean, 6 years into counseling, there are days that I believe that more than other days. Right.
Right.
So I won't pretend like, I got to the end of that journey and I'm there and it's good every day. Right. Mm-hmm. But there are, coping mechanisms healthy coping mechanisms I've learned. And I know who my people are that I can reach out to when I'm having a really bad time.
Yeah.
And I'm still in counseling with the same guy. So, yeah.
I mean, there really is no end to that journey.
No, there's not.
I've talked multiple times on the show about, we just keep trying to improve the version of ourselves that we show up as. And, it takes different stops along the way to help improve that version. And counseling for you, it may be a 6-month part of it. It may be for the rest of your life. And, I just encourage anybody to see counseling and get what they need to, especially if you're in that dark place where you feel like you're doing it all alone. You're not, like, you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And fortunately, we're in a place now where it is talked about a lot more. There are resources out there that people didn't have 20 years ago. There are a lot of my trauma, a lot of my hurts come from the kind of family environment I was raised around, right? And there was a time that I associated a lot of blame in that. It's your fault. You did this, right? Mm-hmm. But now as a 35, 40-year-old, realizing that these people that I held blame towards for so long were 35 and 40-year-old people who were struggling, who had no outlet, right? They didn't have resources. They weren't encouraged to talk about it. They were just doing the best they could.
I mean, they were encouraged not to talk about it.
Right.
I mean, it was, especially in the minority communities,
right,
talking about mental health is not something you did for our parents' generation specifically. And,
right,
even coming into our generation as men, it's still, it's still shaky. Right. It's getting a lot better, but.
And so let's self-medicate. Mm-hmm. Let's find whatever vice is out there that helps me get through this, right? The people and some of the people that hurt me the worst love me, mm-hmm, right? Like there is no way, that's my mom, for instance. My mom and I don't have the best relationship. I haven't had the best relationship for the past 15 years now, right? My mom's made plenty of mistakes in her life. My mom's lived a hard life, lived a very hard life. And a lot of her mistakes hurt me. My mom has never woken up a day in her life and thought, I'm really going to try and get Peter today, right? Really going to do it. I'm going to do this thing to make sure I hurt him. I'm going to do this thing to make sure he knows that I have this power and control over him, right? Never once has she woken up and thought that, right? She still did things that hurt me. There's still pain there. They're not her fault. She was trying to figure out life, trying to get through it, trying to make it, right? And so when you realize that that were things they were carrying, makes that blame a lot easier to just let go of.
Well, something that I've had to deal with is my mom and I don't have any relationship right now.
I think I stepped on that.
What the heck? There you go.
Okay.
We don't have any relationship right now. We haven't spoken in over a year. And before that, as I was coming into my own story, I was learning that there was a lot of trauma there that had gone unmitigated. And it's hard with that familial yoke to realize that you don't have to carry it anymore. Yeah. And if the person that you're dealing with isn't trying to improve themselves, you don't have to invite that toxicity in your life anymore. Yeah. And that's something that I don't want people to be estranged from their families, but I also don't want people to put up with toxicity because they feel the blood is worth it.
Sure. Completely agree. And again, for 10 years, I drew a hard line. You're out of my life. We have no relationship. We do not talk, period. And the thing that blurred those lines were my nephews. Because, again, back to there being no blame, I don't want my mom to feel pain. I don't want my mom to hurt every day. I don't want her to carry what she's carrying, right? So I don't wish any ill will there. But we still don't have a relationship. My sister has maintained that relationship with her very close. Talk every day. Mom's a big part of my nephew's lives, right? I also want to be a big part of my nephew's lives. So guess who I see now? Right. Way more often than I saw 5 years ago. My mom, right? And so the two, what you said, either drawing that hard line or ignoring the familial bond there. There can be a middle ground.
Oh, absolutely.
And it took me 10 years to find that middle ground, right? Like I still have the boundaries. You still have very limited access to my life. The wall is not up that says you can't earn any more of this time back. Like I'll be open to that. But I still have my boundaries in place that say, if you do this thing, if you cross this line, I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. Right. And again, it doesn't, when that comes now, it doesn't come with blame. It doesn't come with as much hurt as it used to come with. It's just, hey, there's my line. I got to go now. And I'll see you again, whether it's in a week, a month, or a few months, and we'll be fine. We'll be cordial and everything will be good. But today I hit my limit. I got to go. Right.
Yeah. For me, it's just about not inviting it in. Yeah. I don't call her anymore. Yeah. She might say I'm keeping her grandkids from her, but they have a phone. Yeah. She hasn't called them a single time since we stopped talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Man.
Yeah. And that's, it's tough, but at the same time, when she was involved in her life, there was a lot of triggers for me. Yeah. Seeing she's so concerned with material things over the growth of people. Yeah. And that, and that's hard to see whenever you're looking at your people that you've created that you're so proud of. Yeah. And she's more concerned about the couch that's got plastic on it. And you're like, this is the adult only room. Yeah. Basically kids are here to be seen, not heard. And a lot of those old fashioned values, and her mom is very much all of that. her mom told me that she did not want to hold my oldest whenever she was born, but she was like a year and a half old, because she doesn't like kids until they become or until they get their own personalities. So she just had no desire to hold my kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I see where it all comes from now. And I was exhibiting a lot of those same, tendencies. And that helped me see, like, you have to take a hard look at yourself and be careful.
Man, that's not the truth. Also, another just kind of a funny experience for me. And back to a relationship I was in at the time, same girlfriend who helped me go down the path of counseling. Mm-hmm. At the time, my sister was pregnant with her oldest son, and she wanted to have a baby shower. And my girlfriend and I were pretty serious. And she wanted to invite my girlfriend to the baby shower. And my mom was coming to the baby shower, right? Mm-hmm. And the only thing my girlfriend knew of my mom was this person that I portrayed to her. Here's all the hurt. Here's all the trauma that I have around this person. It's all based in addiction and all sorts of other bad things. So I painted this picture of who my mom was. My girlfriend said, hey, your sister's invited me to this thing. Your mom's going to be there. Do you want me around your mom? Do you want me to go be there? I won't if you're not comfortable with it. And I said, do whatever you want to do. If you want to go for it. Mm-hmm. Show up. So she went, and she came back, and she was a little confused. How was it? What'd you think? How's the baby shower? And all she wanted to talk about was my mom. She said, I didn't meet the person I thought I was going to meet. The way you described her, had a picture in my mind of this, awful person. Wow. Shame on me. And she said, that's not who I met. In fact, I met the person where I think you get your personality from. I met the person who knows everyone in the room. I met the person who can effortlessly walk the room and start conversation with everyone and make everyone feel like she's their best friend. And she's like, you two are twins in so many ways. Wow. And that was another just kind of aha, weird moment in my life.
So what did you take from that in your understanding of your relationship with your mom?
I think that that was the first time that I really took a step back and was able to say, okay, this person I've been describing, especially, and the conversations and the scenarios I had in my head and only with myself over that 10-year period where we didn't talk. You can lead yourself down a really bad path, right? And so I contrived a bunch of situations that were just not real, right? And so I had this persona built up solely based in my trauma and my hurt that described a person that wasn't a completely accurate description. I can say it was all wrong, right? But that's not the only person she was, right? And so that seeing my mom through my girlfriend's eyes and her experience, and seeing those traits that are admirable and are worth hanging on to was a nice reminder of like, the story I've been telling myself for the last 10 years isn't the whole story.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the softening pieces that again made it a lot easier to let go of some of that blame in the end.
I'm going to pause this for a moment to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So it's been pretty deep.
there was a lot there, yeah.
Yeah. just to sum up so far, we found out a lot about you. You're a pretty deep person, and there's a lot more than I thought there was there. Like, not saying that I thought you were shallow in any way, but I thought you were, outwardly you're very confident, and you seem so secure in your sense of self. How are you able to maintain that whenever you're going through all these internal battles?
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is an authentic representation of who you are?
Well, like I said earlier, man, COVID was a wonderful reset for me personally. You lost the ability to go out and do things. We all did, right? World shut down. So all these things that I do, all these things that were my value, now off the table. And then as those things started to slowly get reintroduced, it was really easy. You either get this pit in your stomach of, I have to go do that again, or that excitement, that thrill of, man, I really missed that. I'm glad I get to go do that again, right? And thankfully, at the time, at that point in time, I'd been in counseling for 3 years, had a better idea of where my value came from, where my value was rooted, right? When I had that pit in my stomach of, I have to go do that again, I just didn't do it. So I love those organizations I was on boards of, right? Love them, still do. I wasn't there for the right reasons all the time. And so that was a line I drew. Like, today I'm on one board.
Wow.
And frankly, I'm on one board because that one board has a very low commitment. You need me twice a year.
Wow.
Cool. I can do that. And I got very okay with saying no. I got to say no to this. Not good for me right now. And so that has helped me be more authentic, right? So if I'm somewhere, if I'm getting involved in your thing, if I'm helping out, I want to be there. Like, it's real. So
do you think you could have reset those boundaries without that forced reset of COVID?
I mean, there were some benefits there that would be pretty impossible to replicate, right? There were some professional changes in that same time that changed my role, and especially now, I'm in a spot now that my community involvement now is irrelevant to my job. My company now doesn't need me involved in the community. They're excited when I do stuff, and excited that I'm part of the team, and excited to support the things that I want to support. But it's not a reflection of my success in my job like it was with PAL and some of my other roles. So, professionally, my time at PAL was coming. So those changes probably would have eventually come. What I think COVID did, COVID exposed a lot of who you were, both individually, professionally, as organizations. If you were a group with good leadership, you probably found some really great ways to get through COVID and thrive and come out on the other end. If you're an organization with bad leadership, you probably struggled in COVID. You probably struggled to come out on the other end, and you might not be around today, right? Professionally speaking. So I think COVID just sped up a lot of timelines that people and organizations were on. So I'm sure I would have come to this realization. I don't know if I would have come to it as quick.
Right. So you talked a little bit about stepping into the role of director of account management for Bridge Road.
Yeah.
we met shortly after you had started this new job. And I remember you saying that you were heading into unknown terrain and you were a little freaked out.
Yeah.
What did the transition look like for you?
Man, again, stepped out of community relations roles in organizations that were heavily based in and around Oklahoma City, where my network and my community relations were invaluable, right? And I was in roles that, frankly, I could probably do in my sleep. It was not meant to be any sort of cocky statement, just the acknowledgement of like, I knew my job, I knew how to do it well, right? And I could go do it. Into a role that was completely foreign to me. Not only that, I was hired for that relationship building ability, but I was dropped into a virtual world.
Right.
And relationship building with someone over Zoom is different than relationship building with someone over coffee or food, right? Just different. And it was something that I had no background in at all. Stepping into a world of HubSpot and working with a lot of tech-based companies, I had to learn to speak a language that I never spoke before, right? And I had to learn to work with a type of person that I'd never worked with before. And so I stepped into an organization, and I'd come from places where, again, I'm hesitant to say this because I don't like the sound of it, but I'd come from places where I was kind of a big deal.
Oh, I'd agree with that.
I don't like saying that, but that's where we are, right?
Yeah.
And I stepped into an organization where I am the weak link. I am the bottom. Like I'm miles behind everyone else here in what we do. And that was humbling. That was really humbling. And I spent my first month or so thinking, I messed up.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. I should not have done this. And that was difficult. That was hard. And so again, just faced with the decision, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in this moment? This is a bit of a defining moment here. Do I go back to my comfort zone? And I got a call about a month or two into my current job from that comfort zone saying, door's still open if you want to come back. Had an opportunity to run away and go straight back to what I was good at and just live a comfortable life. Made the decision of, I want to figure this out, right? Because I want to be something that I say to myself on a regular basis as a hype up kind of reminder. I want to be someone who can do hard things.
Yeah. I
can do hard things. So I literally say that to myself multiple times a day. I can do hard things. When I have to have the conversation I don't want to have, when I have to do the task I don't want to do, when I have to go take on the project or learn the new skill, I can do hard things. Yeah. And that self-talk has been a big deal for me. But in that moment, when the comfort zone is saying, come back, we got you, come on back, we'll make it nice and cushy and easy for you. I had to remind myself, I want to do hard things. I can do hard things.
So was your reluctance to go back to the comfort zone, was that about redefining your identity and separating yourself from that I am my relationships mentality?
A little bit, for sure. But I can just kind of, for me, living in that comfort zone, I want to be pushed. I want to try new things. I want to have challenges, right? and those weren't going to come in those roles.
Right.
And so I was faced. I had two positions in front of me: the comfort zone position that had a ton of security, but I was at my ceiling, right? Or the new position that had little to no security, but had a ceiling that I couldn't even see yet. And so what did I want to do in that moment? I wanted to bet on myself. I wanted to gamble a little bit. And so that was the deciding factor there. I want to go push. I want to go see what I can do with this opportunity.
If you had not had spent the last, 5 years previous in counseling, do you think you could have made that decision?
Probably not. No. Because, so the decision to take the job I'm in, was probably the first time I made a decision for myself with no one else in mind. And what I mean by that is I've spent so much of my life afraid to let other people down. Right. And the role I was in was at OKCPS. And I got there because of relationships. Dr. Sean McDaniel, who I'm a huge fan of, superintendent there, what he's done with the school district, the type of leader he is, the type of person he is. Again, just somebody I want to be around. He called me up and said, "Hey, I want you on team OKCPS. Here's a role I have, and I want you to fill it. Come do it." And so I took that job, and 9 weeks later, I got this other job offer.
Yeah.
9 weeks. And so having to go talk to Sean and say, "Hey man, I know you just opened this door for me and you believe in me and you're my biggest cheerleader. But I've got to go try this other thing." That was hard. Because again, I feel like I'm letting you down.
Yeah.
I don't want to let you down. I feel like I'm letting you down. And in wrestling with those, when the second job offer came, and I'm sitting there thinking, do I take this job or do I stay where I am with OKCPS? The only thing that was going to get me to stay at OKCPS was the fear of not wanting to let people down.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with what was best for me, right? It was just, I have to stay here so I don't let people down. So I don't ruin these relationships with people who like me, right? And having the ability that I practiced and I built in counseling to say, that's not where my value is. My feelings, my desires, what I want matter also. Help me take this job. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do it without that counseling.
I feel like a big part of figuring out our identities is separating other people's dreams for us from what we really want.
Yeah.
And, I think it's great to have people supporting you and helping you fulfill your dreams. It gets dangerous when other people start to dream for you.
Yeah.
Because I've already done it with my kids and started to lay out a path that I think was like, oh, you guys do jujitsu. Great.
Right.
So I built this whole big dream around it, and then they didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it crushed me.
Yeah.
But I had to back away and say, okay, like I'm letting my stuff affect you.
Yeah.
That's not what especially with your own kids, that's not what it's about. And, friends are the same. You're there to support their dreams, not your dreams for them.
And just like with your kids, you didn't do that with bad intention, right? No. You did that because you want the best for them.
Absolutely.
And you think you know what that path is. And you might be right, but there are certain aspects of that they're just going to figure out for themselves, right? People want their own paths for you. But something else I've noticed, it's not rocket science. There are going to be people at every turn who tell you can't do something. And that's a reflection of what they think about their own abilities, not what they think about yours. Right? They're telling you, you can't do that because I can't do it. I know I couldn't do that, so you can't do that. Right? And so I want to try my best never to be someone who says you can't do that, especially around kids, especially with kids, man. So
it's a great thing to stick, like, kind of, lay your hat on is like, let's not discourage these kids who, I mean, really, they have all the potential in the world to do anything until we start limiting them.
Yep.
If until the age of 18 to 21 is basically our beta, our prototype phase, what version of Peter sits in front of me today?
Oh, man. Let's see. 18 to 23 or 24 was definitely version 1. If they were my beta, whatever you want to call it there. There was a version from 25 to 30. So that's prototype 2. And then probably that version from 30 up to counseling, whatever age that was, 35 or 36. Version 3. So I'm probably in a version 4 right now. And that still kind of, definitely not through counseling. That I think that will be an aspect of my life forever. But having a better understanding of my value and my identity and what makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy and what drains me and what fills my cup. That's a big aspect of who I am now. And being able to say, I know you like that thing. That's not for me. Just like, and we can still be friends and we can still be cool. I don't want to do it though. It's
so surprising the way this conversation is going, because, I was really thinking I was going to get all these tips and how
to go network.
How to go network. And, really, I know you could still give those tips.
Sure.
But there's a much better story here in how you actually started to live authentically.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of the tips apply to both. A tip I'd give you for both, ask questions, man. The amount of times that people have told me that I'm such a good conversationalist, or we had such an easy conversation, or something about the way I talked to them, right? And you look back on the conversation, and I didn't do any of the talking, just ask questions, right? And I listened with intention, right? The only difference between that networking person that you thought you knew and the person who's sitting here now is, I'll still ask you the questions. I'll still get excited about all the things. I don't have to go do all the things afterwards.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go sit on your board. I don't have to be part of your committee. I don't have to help with your project. I can be a fan. I can like your stuff on social media. I can ask you for updates and get super excited about it the next time I see you. The guy before felt like I had to go help if I was asked to help.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have the ability to say, either that's not for me or I don't have the capacity right now.
Right.
And acknowledging that I've got to save some of that capacity for me. It's not a skill I used to have.
It's an important one to avoid burnout for sure. Yeah. And, what you said earlier, everybody loves to talk about themselves to somebody who's actively listening.
Yeah.
Like sharing a story to someone who's not really paying attention to you, not really great. Yeah. But if you feel like somebody's actually interested in your story, it feels great. Yeah. So absolutely, those are great. That's a great advice.
Well, and that active listening is also a learned skill, because again, for so long, as you're talking, I'm formulating my response in my head, right? That's not active listening. Like I'm not I'm worrying about my response. I'm worrying about how my ability to comprehend what you're saying is coming across right. That's not active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Truly active listening is a skill you have to learn. It took me a long time to learn. But man, if you are excited about something, I don't care if it's something that is completely foreign to me. I want to hear you talk about it.
Right.
There's a fun example. I work with a different level of introverts now. And there's a girl in my office who has roly-polies as pets.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's a different level.
That's different.
Right.
Did you know there are multiple species? And,
No.
and here's what they are, and here's how they live, and here's what they eat. And this girl can go on for days about roly-polies. I'm never going to have a roly-poly as a pet. Never going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not my interest level. I can sit there and listen to her talk about it all day.
Yeah.
Fascinating when she talks about it because she's so excited about it.
Yeah.
That's such a cool thing. Not something I'm ever going to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Probably never going to help you do this. Probably never going to, get into any sort of roly-poly related project with you. But I'm super excited that you're doing this. I'm super excited that you found this thing that you enjoy. And I like to see you get excited. So tell me.
Is learning to just be interested, not so much in the topic, but just in the excitement of the speaker. Is that a learned skill as well? Or is that something that's always been there for you?
I think I think that part of it's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
The learned skill was just being able to hear it and accept it and move on, right? Not how can I help? How can I make this better? How can I prove to you that I can add value to what you're doing?
Right.
Right. The value I can add to most of the conversations I'm in now is that I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
High five, man. And great. Go for it. Go on and keep doing what you do.
Yeah. And that's what you're talking about is on the other side, a really important relationship tool, because I'm still, over 15 years into my relationship with my wife, still not great at just listening without trying to fix her problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not active listening. That's, trying to be a problem solver, trying to, that's not what your partner needs most of the time. Most of the time, they just need to be able to talk to you. And I can say that all day long, but practicing it it's hard.
Do you ever ask ahead of time?
I've gotten better at saying, hey, do you just need me to listen, or do you want me to help you solve this problem?
Do you need support?
It's hard.
Do you need a solution?
It's hard. It's still hard.
It is hard, but man, I've had coworkers I've had that conversations with. I've had relationships that I've had that conversation with. And man, if you tell me I just need support, I can turn everything off.
Yeah. Right.
Just my brain is not working. I am solely focused on you and the words coming out of your mouth. That's it. And that was a learned skill that took practice for sure. Now, if you tell me that you need a solution, you need help, I'm going to go into work mode and we're going to take some notes and we're going to get a plan together. But if you tell me you just need a solution or you need support, bring it on. What do you got?
As in a co-working situation, what does it look like just being supportive? Because to me, usually if you're talking about something that, is some sort of conflict at work, you should be trying to work towards a solution.
Man, especially when you're in the leadership role, right? If you're the leader of the organization, of the team, of whatever you're on, again, I felt for a long time it was my job to be the solution, right? And I worked with someone, her name was Brittany Ward, who sometimes just needed to vent, right? I had a tough exchange with one of our volunteers, or one of my schools is not doing what I needed to do, or this thing didn't go the way I wanted it to. She called me out. She was saying, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember her saying, I don't need you to fix this. I'm just frustrated right now. Cool. Next time you don't need me to fix something, tell me. I won't That's great. Take that off me. And so that, from a professional standpoint, that's probably where that habit started. Hey, I know you're coming in hot right now. Do you need support or do you need a solution? Mm-hmm. And if you need a solution or you need support, cool. Shut my door, do whatever you got to do, and I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I've talked to my wife about this. I think it's just something about how my brain works.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dale, you don't have to ask me that question. I want to fix it.
Right.
Like whatever it is, I'm talking to you about it because I want to fix it. That doesn't mean be unkind to me. And that's something that she's had to work on is
sure.
I do want your advice, your support. You telling me it sucks. The thing I want to do sucks, or, being unkind with your words, not helpful. But coming from a different perspective and providing support, and I want it. Like, please help me figure this thing out.
I have spent a lot of time. It's something I nerd out over a little bit, and I really enjoy. Different personality assessments, right? Spending time in those, both in what my personality assessment says about me, but coworkers, relationships, friends, what their assessments say about them, right? Mm-hmm. And learning communication styles and the way people process things. I had a coworker at Norm Technology Center who I thought hated me, right? I'd come to her with an idea and she'd be like, oh yeah, okay. And we'll just walk off and we'll just never talk to me about it again. Mm-hmm. Right. I was like, man, she doesn't like anything I want to try. She is not supportive. And then we, as a team, we all went through this personality assessment, and she was in this group of people who just need time to process. Right. And I don't process out loud. I process in my own kind of quiet little corner. And here's how I do it. And here's how long it takes me to make a decision. That changed our whole communication style. Right. Yeah. So again, with your wife, kind of what I said about your mom or about my mom earlier, I doubt your wife is ever like, I really hope I hurt his feelings today.
Oh no, right? Absolutely not. Yeah, for sure.
Never would she really think them. Maybe you earned that sometimes, but rarely does she say that, right? So again, the other thing I say is often in relationships is, hey, if I say something that hurts your feelings, you have to tell me,
right?
Because I can guarantee you I didn't mean it. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean it to hurt your feelings. So there's a miscommunication somewhere. So if I said something to hurt your feelings, we have to pause, stop in that moment and talk about that thing. Mm-hmm. Because one of us is misunderstanding something. So let's reframe it. Let's talk about it. So I know what I did to hurt your feelings, or you know what you did to hurt my feelings, mm-hmm. right? We have to stop and talk about these things as opposed to just hanging on to it forever and letting that build and build and build, right?
Yeah. And I definitely agree with that model. I unfortunately can get into that, into the bad space where I do say things to be hurtful. Yeah. It's something that I was raised by.
Yeah.
My parents were very mean to each other, and that's the model I grew up with.
Yeah.
As generational trauma, I've done a pretty good job of breaking, but it's something I have to be honest with myself about and say that conversation was not useful.
Yeah.
I was mean. I said mean things, and I hurt my wife, who I care about very much. And it's a continual process of being honest and knowing that she loves me enough to accept me anyways. Right. And being the person is like, I was an asshole. I'm sorry.
Let's make this very clear. I can sit here in this safe podcast room with you, with my buddy, and talk about these things and say all these nice, wonderful things about how you should act and how you should approach life and the mindset you should have, right? Mm-hmm. In no way does that mean that I get it right every time.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. There's no way I get it right every time. I hope I get it right every time.
Yeah.
I hope I have the ability when I get it wrong to say, I messed that up. I didn't do that right. But even that, I don't do that right every time either. Right. So much easier said than done, man.
I mean, but the awareness is what's so important, of knowing that I'm not perfect. I don't get it right every time. I'm trying to, improve on it. And especially when you're talking about it, you're sharing your vulnerabilities on air. It's important to acknowledge those things. It's like, this is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
I don't hit the mark all the time.
Well, again, back to those learned skills. In that guy who had to be everywhere, had to have it all together, had to be perfect all the time. You could probably guess I'm not perfect all the time, right?
Right.
So in those times when I messed up, I didn't want to tell anybody. I don't want to tell you until I have this fixed, right? Let's hide this side until I have this fixed and I know it won't happen again.
Right.
I have this completely under control. Right.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
That's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
That, I've made a mistake. I'm going to fix it first.
Right.
Then I'll tell people about
Right.
it. That whole time from mistake to resolution is awful.
It's awful. It's terrible.
Don't do that, folks.
Do not do that.
Tell somebody. Share it with somebody. And the worst part about it is so often somebody else has the fix.
Yeah.
Instantly. You tell them about it, and you tell your boss about the mistake you made. Yep. You tell your coworker, and they say, "Oh, I did that too.
Yep.
Here's how you fix it."
100%.
And instead, you spend, what feels like an eternity, agonizing. Oh, that's the perfect word, agonizing.
Yes. And so, that learned skill of being able to say, "Hey, I messed that up. I messed that up really bad. I need help unmessing it up."
Mm-hmm.
Right. But man, pre-counseling, just in that guy who had to have it all together, that the idea of saying, I need help, or I messed up, or I wasn't good enough, or I did something wrong or bad or whatever it was unimaginable, right? I could not show you that weakness.
Yeah.
It's there, right? It's absolutely there.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't show it to you. And I couldn't show that to the people that I was the most intimate with.
Yeah.
And it's heavy, man. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So
I'm glad you're able to come out of that. As you've been in this, this newer version of yourself, has there been a time when being that authentic self has burned you?
Man, being my authentic self has burned me. The idea of like breakups hurt more now. Now that I'm more real with you. That time, like when breakups happen, I had one a couple of years ago that just messed me up in a way that I've not been hurt before. But I also opened up in that relationship in a way I'd not opened up before.
Right.
So there are things like that where it hurts more. Like I feel more of the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think being authentic has ever burned me. And in those moments where it's potentially burned me, I gave you too much and you took advantage. And, I kind of see that as a way to say, thank you.
Right.
Like you showed me your cards. We're on different paths, and good luck to you.
That's why I asked this question.
Yeah.
I try to ask it every episode. I don't always, but I try to, because very seldom can people think of a time when it did burn them. And in cases where it did, it's a valuable lesson. Yeah. Or like you said, you loved harder than you ever have before. You showed somebody more of yourself. Yeah. And that hurts. But in the long run, is it really a loss?
Right.
Like, that to me it's a win. And it hurts.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. That was definitely a win. And again, things we talk about in counseling, talking about the hurt that I felt there, but just the fact that I put myself out there, I was vulnerable, and I felt that hurt, was a win, was a giant win, man. Yeah.
Did you enter that relationship as yourself, or did you have to unveil that as you?
It was a gradual process. Yeah. It was probably a year-long thing, and it was a slow and steady progression for sure.
I encourage authenticity in all things, but in relationships, especially because hopefully if you start as yourself and you meet somebody who's themselves, either you're going to find out pretty quickly, either you click or you don't. And there's going to be so much less conflict down the road that's going to be irreparable.
Yeah.
Versus, you start as somebody who is pretending to be this, and that.
Yeah.
And as you slowly peel those things away, you've changed to a different person by the end of it. And maybe the other person doesn't like that person.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean,
Sure.
it's and also you grow in these processes, and hopefully you grow together instead of apart. But honoring that is important.
Something that has helped me in that journey, specifically in relationships. You saw this guy who was confident and could work a room and all that stuff. The path you set us on for this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I am telling you that's not all of who I am, right?
Right.
I lost kind of where I'm going with that, but that inability that type of relationship building that I had for a long time,
mm-hmm.
like, and even here now, we talk about some deep things, right?
Right.
Not all of it was deep.
Mm-hmm.
You might hear my story, you might hear parts of it and think, man, that's deep. It wasn't really deep. And so I have to say that in that relationship building. Hey, I know I told you this thing, and on the surface it's heavy, and it might sound like a big thing, and it is a big thing. But if this relationship progresses, we're going to have this conversation again. Because there's aspects of it that I didn't tell you, right? There's emotional aspects. There's ways it has impacted me. There are other things other ripple effects that I didn't tell you, right? So I can sit here and tell this story almost in like a sequence of events, right? I can tell you the story in a matter-of-fact way. For a long time, people, especially in relationships, thought, and myself too, I'm opening up, I'm being vulnerable, I'm being authentic. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just telling you the surface of what happened, right? And so I say that often now too. I know we're talking about this thing. We're going to have to talk about it again. And after that, we're going to have to talk about it again. And after that, we're going to have to talk about it again, because I can't tell you this story once and tell you every aspect of what happened. And that kind of takes me back full circle to the very start of counseling. My very first session, he goes, what brought you in today? And I just lay out this whole story of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, there's a lot there. It's a big story. And you sat here and told me that with not an ounce of emotion. That's not good.
Right.
You shouldn't be able to tell that story without emotion. That's what I want to get into. Mm-hmm. And I showed up thinking I want to get there and talk about my girlfriend and my romantic relationships and how I'm unhappy at work.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no. We're going to talk about this other stuff first. And once we get through all of that, we can get to girlfriends and work and whatnot. Right. And here we are 6 years into it, still talking about that.
Wow.
Right.
So, I mean, it's about peeling the layers.
Yep.
And authenticity to me is about choosing who gets to see the core of your onion. Yep. And who gets to see the first layer, the second layer, but being aware of it.
Sure.
And not just choosing for there to be one layer that goes out to everybody, because that's not true.
Yeah.
Not everybody deserves the same level of Peter.
Yep.
Right? Saying that, is there anything else that you feel like you'd want to go deeper in right now that you'd want to just clarify? Or
I mean, I don't know that I have anything that I want to, nothing comes to mind on what I want to go deeper in and clarify. But if you're still listening to this podcast, I mean, we've been here a while now. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to try and beat Derek's record, but I'm not touching it. But something I read recently, and it was Brene Brown, Power of Vulnerability. She talks about the importance of time to be creative and time to play. And how we, as kids, we have all the time in the world to be creative and to play. Mm-hmm. And we lose that as adults, and how important that time is, right? So if you're still listening, if you want a good read, pick up Power of Vulnerability. But my big takeaway from that was the importance of creativity and play. So find things that allow you to be creative or allow you to play. where nothing else matters. I've been running a lot lately. I'm not the smallest guy out there. I've never been a runner. But that time now, I've found a way to enjoy that time almost as my play. And when I'm out trying to get some miles in, emails don't matter, social media doesn't matter, who's texting me doesn't matter. I'm just out and just out doing my thing, out playing, and that has been so rejuvenating for me. So find ways to be creative, find ways to play.
Something I found so far in this, discovery of authenticity is that people who have talked about their time where they weren't really themselves, they didn't have anything they did for fun. There wasn't really any fun. There wasn't room for fun because everything is put into pretending. Now that you've come more into your own, you're finding room for fun again. Yeah. And so, I'll definitely give credit to Brene Brown because I've been hearing her name a lot, and I know who she is. I haven't read any of her stuff, but I think that it's so important to, one, look at if you are having any fun in your life. Yeah. Two, look at if you're not, why aren't you? Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope, and there are fine lines, right? Mm-hmm. I loved POW. I loved my time in POW. I loved what we got to build in POW. But there was a time in POW when it was not fun. Mm-hmm. And it took me too long to realize I'm in a time when this is not fun. Yeah. This is no longer fun. Because how could this thing not be fun? I loved it, right? I'm getting to make such an impact. I'm getting to meet so many people. I'm getting to be a part of so many cool things. How is this not fun? Yeah. It's not fun. And so knowing where those boundaries are, they can sneak up on you. So this is a thing that takes constant assessment.
Man, you mentioned the time. We're coming up on 2 hours.
Oh man, sorry.
So please don't apologize. I think it's been such a valuable conversation and really surprising. And I'm so glad that you've been so vulnerable and you've shared such a deep journey with us, because I think it's so important to hear, especially from the people who look like they've got it all together, to hear that it's a journey for everyone. Yeah. It looks different for everyone, but it also is the same for everyone. Yeah. We all hurt. We all, try to hide or deal with that pain in different ways. But really, honesty is the path. Getting to that place where you can share yourself with others, especially the people you love, and be honest about it. Life gets better.
Absolutely.
1,000% better whenever you're living authentically.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So what's next for Peter?
Well, today, I'm going to go celebrate my nephews, man. Little guy turned 2 yesterday. We got a family birthday party. So, I'll see my mom. I'll see some family that I've had some of those boundaries with. And so I'll do that until my cup is empty. And then I've got some plans tonight with some people who fill my cup back up, and so I know I need some of both. Yeah. So that's what's immediately next for me. Professionally, I'm kind of staying where I am. I'm enjoying this path of learning to do hard things that are outside of my comfort zone, out of my control. That's been a fun challenge for me. And I think that's as far as I can tell you, man.
Well, I'm curious about this because you talked a lot about your mom. Yeah. On this episode, you talked about your family some. Yeah. Will you tell your mom about this podcast?
Ooh, that's a heavy question, man.
Right? Because I think about if my mom was listening all the time, because I talk about her a lot.
Man, I don't know. And I don't know if I can. I don't know how long it would take me to sit here to formulate an answer.
I don't know as an answer. It's okay to not know.
I don't know.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting because this is, a very vulnerable place, and people come here and feel safe enough to talk about things that hopefully they're cognizant of the implications of. Sure. But because I don't think anybody's come in and just trashed anybody. Sure. But at the same time, your mom would probably hurt her feelings to some degree.
I mean, I would be lying if I said that thought didn't cross my mind, because I did listen to some of your stuff with Derek. I did kind of know what I'm stepping into, right? And I know how you're going to promote it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that there are going to be topics that we talk about that no one else knows about.
Yeah.
Is about to be out there, right? I don't know, man. We'll see what comes of it. But
thinking about like in that emotion right there,
yeah.
What do you feel? Like, are you afraid? Are you excited to have that burden off? That because like, I am not the only person who thinks that Peter Evans is, is a legend in networking and really is one of the most confident people who walks into a room. I'm positive I'm not the only person who thinks that.
I have peace in knowing that the people who need to know that right now know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have peace in knowing like the people who will hear this and accept it are probably the people I want to keep around.
Yeah.
Right. If someone listens to this and like, man, that's not the dude I thought he was, and he's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be around all that. Cool.
Yeah, I love that fast forward button. I'm like, let's just skip to the good part where you leave.
That, right?
Like,
Thank you. But the people who, maybe someone reaches out and says, hey, thank you for saying that because it makes it easier for me to say it now.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're welcome. Like, come be, like, how can I be in your circle? Right.
That's really what I hope for. And somebody like you saying it, I feel like really leapfrogs the level of power that is going to have this whole show. The whole point of it is to help people be more themselves.
Yeah.
And somebody like you who so many people think is already there, you're still working on it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's okay that I am too.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Just another quote I remind myself of often. The people who care don't matter, and the people who matter don't care.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So. Ooh. As Derek would say. Bars.
Derek is good people. Talking about good people, man.
I've been so blessed with the circle I've had of people who are willing to support me and come on this show because they're wise people. They're people who've seen some stuff, and they're also kind enough to share their time with me and my audience. It would be really easy to say, I'm so happy for what you're doing, but I don't have time for it.
Right.
Like Taylor Doe, who was on yesterday, we had to do some schedule hustling to get it going because the dude's busy. He's still taking the time and he wants to come back on. And, I feel like what we're doing here is important.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's going to be really valuable as it gets spread out there. It's like I have the huge listening base right now, but even if it's just one person who is able to feel more comfortable sharing themselves with their circle, like that's enough.
Yeah. Well, as I feel this kind of come into a natural end here, I'll bring us again back full circle. I do appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the space you're creating. I just appreciate the conversations you're having. I don't know what will come of this, but if there's something I can do to support and help, you know how to find me.
Absolutely.
And I believe in you, man.
Oh, you'll make me cry.
Keep doing it.
Don't look at me.
Keep doing it.
Luckily for me, whenever I enjoy something, I really like to get into it. So I don't see any stopping. Like I said, that 44% of 3 episodes or less, this is my 9th episode. 10 will be on, no, I'm sorry. This is my 10th. Today is the 10th episode. Okay. Wednesday with JB will be 11. And as long as I can keep getting great guests like you guys to come on, I'm going to keep doing it because I really love it. And I really do feel like I'm hopefully helping make the world a little bit better every time I do one.
Well, you've got from what I know of your lineup so far, you've got some amazing people, and those amazing people have some amazing people in their network. So I can see you having a long list of people here. This has been great, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everybody, if you've enjoyed today's episode, give us a follow and a like and share it with someone you think might enjoy it too. Also, check out earlier episodes to support the future creation of great content. Don't forget to like us on @Authentic Identity Management on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and LinkedIn. You can also head over to the Authentic Bruce YouTube channel for podcast video with bonus content and impactful clips from my conversations with these great guests. Finally, if you are struggling to show up as yourself in your content, your work, your family, or your life, I would love to help you. Authentic Identity Management does identity coaching to help you align yourself with the identity you share with the world. It's exhausting to live someone else's life. Live authentically and access the potential that belongs only to you. You can contact me on social or email at bruce@AuthenticIdentityManagement.com to set up a free 30-minute consultation. Thanks again to Peter Evans for being here. That is it for today's episode. Until next time, be yourself and love yourself. Bye, everyone.